Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Tiki Life. Today I'm at my buddy Steven's home tiki bar called the Rocking Jellyfish Lounge. I've filmed a lot of episodes here on a lot of different things, and your bar has been featured on Duke and Lola's Home Secret Tiki Escapes series. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was part of that, but that's kind of like their series, and then also for what was it, Cutwater?
Cutwater.
The Home Tiki Bar Hunter series?
Yeah, it's a little hard to find on Google, but they did a great job. So Cutwater went out to, I think, 5 bars and featured them. And I used their product to make some drinks and had a great conversation with use of one of the co-founders and some other great folks up from San Diego. So check out the series, not just for my bar, but the series of the other bars is just fabulous. They did a great job.
Well made. I mean, like high professional, But like, I never actually did an episode with you about your own bar.
Which, you told me that today, the day we're filming, and that kind of shocked me. I always, given that you've been here so much, Ray, I don't need to assume we've talked about
I don't
the
need
bar.
to tell you about all this because you already know. But so today we're going to kind of feature your bar, but it's not just going to be like a typical, hey, welcome to the Rockin' Jellyfish Lounge. There's a reason why we're going to be talking about your home tiki bar.
Yeah, and we're going to hit a few, not necessarily highlights, but a few details about the bar rather than have to describe everything in the bar. And the reason I say details was I got a book from the library. It's sort of an autobiography and about the writing process by an author named John McPhee.
Yeah.
And there was this quote that he said about writing nonfiction. And he says, one of my mantras is, quote, 1,000 details add up to one impression, close quote. He says it's actually a quote from Cary Grant, and its implications are that few, if any, details individually are essential, while the details collectively are absolutely essential. And so what was going through my mind when I read that, and something I've been thinking about the last few years about my bar and other bars is when you talk about a bar and you're talking about a feel, a look, a concept, and then you're talking about an immersive bar, and particularly a tiki bar is one subset of that. Yeah. You talk about, maybe what Bamboo Ben calls layers, and you talk about the details. And it was, putting it together, it was a lot of details and things. And I was always curious whether, if I put these details here, maybe 1 in 10 people are going to notice that detail or that particular item. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of thinking, like, what's the point? Is it just to amuse myself? But what this quote brought home was that you need the details to add up to that collective vibe or that collective feeling if you're putting together a home tiki bar. Mm-hmm. And I think the best bars we go to, commercial or home bars that are immersive, have a story, but also have details that support the story. And whether you appreciate or you see those details or not is almost beside the point, because all the details add up to one impression. And that's kind of the point of this quote that kind of hit home to me. And so that the details are not unimportant. And even if you don't appreciate every single detail, that's cool, as long as it fits your theme and story. And the other thing I just wanted to give a shout out to, and most people watching this video have probably heard of this book, if not actually have it, is from Tiki Tom. The way he structures the book is what he calls different navigation points, or nav points he calls them, or I call them guide posts. And what's really good is it encapsulates some of these themes. And the first one is tell a story, the second one is chart a course, and he's devoted talks on just one of these nap points, as well as all of the whatever it is, dozen or 16 he has as well. And he's given a lot of thought to this. And the tell a story and the viewpoints, the first two, are really important. And so, in terms of this quote, all the details add up to one impression. In terms of the way Tom has approached looking at telling a story, I point to my favorite commercial bar is Tiki Tatsuya. They have the backstory, and if you go in the bathroom, you can hear the story. They tell the story, the history of the bar. I think it's 20 minutes long. So I actually had to listen to it online. I wasn't going to stand up my guests. They think I'd have a different problem if I were in the bathroom 20 minutes.
Steven, are you all right in there? You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just listening to the loudspeaker. It's kind of one of my obvious discoveries 5 years into the build of my own bar is like, the details matter. And if you make the details matter. And so if you're telling a story and you have a viewpoint, and either the stuff that you accumulate fits that story and viewpoint, or the items themselves kind of add to that viewpoint. And that's what makes it yours. Because again, the reason I like home bars even more than commercial bars is they can be more eccentric, which is point number 4, I think, in the book, by the way. Be eccentric, which is what my bar's under, interestingly enough, which I'm kind of proud of. You can be eccentric, you have a point of view, and you've been in many more home bars than I, but the ones that have a point of view and that have a theme or a story or a set of vibes going on are the ones that are sort of my favorite aesthetically. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, having been in a lot.
Well, this is a really, really good topic. And I completely agree with that quote. Because, it's this feeling I get when I walk into, like, say, especially like a home tiki bar. Or a really good tiki bar, commercial tiki bar. And it's like you walk in, obviously there's so much to take in that your mind doesn't really focus in on anything particular. It's just like it just has like your mental snapshot of it all. Like, for example, like I'm looking at the other side of your tiki bar here, and I'm not focusing in on any one particular thing. It's just I'm seeing it all. And you're right, the devil is in the details. And especially when it comes to that, that's where you see the personality of someone and their bar and their interests. Like, for example, I just did an episode with Will Locksmith Hawkins up in Whidbey Island, and it's like this military aircraft theme. Well, it really stands out because it's like there's a giant like airplane above this thing. But the thing is, like, there's a lot of home tiki bars I've been to where like you get the person's personality, what their interests are from that. The more we're talking about this, the more that I'm really, really starting to think that it's definitely very important. I mean, obviously it's important. But I think about, and I'm sure you've seen tiki bars that you've gone to or seen pictures of where you're like, you see it and you're like, yeah, it looks great. Build outs, they got the thatch, they got the tikis, but then there's like nothing more to it, and there's no like emotional reaction to it. You're like, yeah, it's a tiki bar.
It's funny.
And then you wonder, and then I'm starting to realize maybe the reason why is because there isn't that other element, the story, this is what this tiki bar is about.
Because, you and I had this discussion, not on camera, a few months ago,
generic tiki bar.
Yeah, I was at a tiki bar, and it was a newer bar, and it was a professional build, and
I don't want to name any names. I don't want to, and you don't have to name any names.
Yeah,
but and the thing is, because I can't come. There's no particular bar that's coming to my mind right now. But I know that.
Yeah,
though.
But it was impressive. This one bar had one piece of art that was magnificent. That was an anchor point, which was great.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I go, yeah, it's good. The drinks were good. The bar was, good. The pictures actually were even more amazing than the feel of the bar itself. And maybe that's it. Although they tried to put some of the details and they're trying to tell a story, maybe they're just it just
or a
maybe
theme.
wasn't enough. I don't know what it is. I don't know what makes a very good or a good bar today versus the exceptional immersive environment. And maybe it's the way you've accumulated and presented these details is one important factor.
I agree.
Between the goods and the greats, because there's so many good bars out there.
I think. I think if there's anything, a tiki bar needs to be memorable, and there needs to be something about that bar that makes it memorable. And now I'm thinking about it. It's like when I think about like my favorite tiki bars, there's a certain element to it. There's a certain thing about each of those bars that could be like, okay, that's the reason why I like this bar, and it's this. When you have a bar that's just sort of like nothing, it's hey, tiki bar. There's nothing really to remember about. And I think you're right. I think that this, that we're talking, we always talk about the fourth wave of tiki, and my feeling is the fourth wave is the combination of like tiki and other themes.
Yeah.
And I think that might be almost, I don't want to say essential, but it makes the ones stand out when there's like, okay, yeah, it's a tiki bar, but you're like Tiki Tatsuya.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's combining tiki bar with this Japanese kind of thing. And speaking of uniqueness, your tiki bar is very, very unique. And, I've never seen a tiki bar like this. And there's a lot of different elements that your interests come from and everything. And we're going to kind of do a little tour.
Yeah,
of your bar, and then you can point out some of the things that are specific to you and your story, and your wife's too, for that matter, and the things that make the Rock and Jellyfish Lounge, the Rock and Jellyfish Lounge.
We're sort of fitting in with the theme of this episode in terms of details, creating an impression, point of view, telling a story, like Tiki Tom said. So the way my bar started was not as an immersive bar necessarily, or even a tiki bar, but I'm influenced by lowbrow art that I like, art that I've collected. And so it more inspired by an art gallery than a tiki bar. And so we see some lowbrow art from artists like Doug Horn, Rob Kramer, Sean Dickinson, and some others. Also featuring some Doug Horn art here and in other walls. Now, what's interesting, and we've talked about this before, so anyone who knows me or has been to my bar knows there's a little bit of an obsession about the monkey with fez. What I wanted to just highlight, I guess, in the terms of the bar was this is what started the bar, was getting the art out here. And as it became more of an immersive or even tiki-like bar, I was struggling what to do. We have low ceilings, and what to do about the light. And since my inspiration and my point of view was an art gallery, and I love gallery lights, especially the new modern LED variety, because they're so versatile. So I can play around with them. I can change the colors. I can move them around. So rather than hide those lights, I thought I'd make them prominent, or at least noticeable, so that you get more of the vibe of an art gallery. Because again, that was the inspiration before I even knew what direction I was taking the bar or theme. That's one of the interesting things about a home tiki bar, is very few of us are fortunate to start with a story. Usually we start with stuff that we like, that reflects our personality. And then I think the successful bars fit those within a story, or in my case, more of a theme or a look. So this is, and you can tell by my juvenile taste in art, I suppose, and my love of cartoons. This reflects a theme that I also have in the bar, along with the lowbrow art. It's the Pan-Pacific pop surrealism, I call it. Doesn't come trippingly off the tongue. But what I wanted to encapsulate, and why I love this print in particular, is because this is representative of art from the Pacific nations. You notice there's that we were cut off here at Russia and China, and then there's no European nations. This is not an Atlantic-centric map that many people are familiar with, but this has been a Pacific-centered map. And so my interest is not necessarily just on Polynesia, but certainly on Melanesia, Papua New Guinea in particular. Um, and I was fortunate enough to visit there a little over a year ago. But also, we're in the Pacific Northwest, and this is a Haida piece of art and native art of the West Coast. So even some of the mugs I've collected and some of the artwork that we'll talk about momentarily reflects that. And significantly, this year in 2023, Ken Ruzek put together this Tiki Farm mug this year. And this mug was influenced directly by this print. And so, certainly, I'm very happy that Ken put this together because it represents the Pan Pacific part of the Pan Pacific pop surrealism that is my clunky name for my bar. And we're not going to go through everything in the bar, but as you go through it, you're going to see things from Papua New Guinea, from Polynesia, friends like David Gambale. You'll see that with that tongue there, who's a modern artist and friend in Vancouver, Washington, who puts together great artwork. He also made the terrific lamp. And then we're not afraid to deviate just from Polynesia and Melanesia. So what I thought we'd do is we go over into another corner of the bar, and I'll show you just a few pieces of art to represent what we're talking about here. This is a bit of the Pan Pacific part, both representing sort of the gallery vibe, but also we've got things not only from this is a dream mask from Papua New Guinea, and then on the far part of the wall we have another mask that I actually picked up in Papua New Guinea. The hardest part was getting it home successfully on the airplane. But we have here masks from the Pacific Northwest up on the Canadian side of the border, just a couple hours north of here, off of Vancouver Island, is where these carvers had come from. This one I picked up in Victoria, which is one of the famous carvers, the Hunt family. That there was a revival of native art in Canada and in the Pacific Northwest at large after the Canadian and American governments had sort of extinguished the art, especially of totem poles. And a carver named Mungo Martin revived the carving tradition, and his one of his pupils was Hunt, Robert Hunt, and there's a number of Hunt families. In fact, another episode, if I can cross-reference our episodes, features Calvin Hunt, a member of the Hunt family who did a totem pole that we're privileged to own, and we've done a video on that as well. And this is what's known as a moon mask. I think it's a Kwakwakwa tribe, the First Nations up in Vancouver Island, and this is a beautiful mask as well. And then we and maybe if we haven't already, we can do an episode and compare native arts and carvings between the Pacific Northwest and Papua New Guinea. There's actually a documentary you can find on YouTube where an artist from Papua New Guinea came to Vancouver or Victoria, and an artist from British Columbia came over to Papua New Guinea because of both differences and similarities in ancestral and native carving. But again, we were going from one end of the Pacific to I guess the polar opposite of the other side of the Pacific to represent the art. And it sort of translates into everything from the stained glass jellyfish that represent the Rocking Jellyfish Lounge, because for those who don't know, there are rocking chairs on one side of the bar and jellyfish on the other. That's why it gets its name. But I even put a few mugs here from the West Coast, or that represent the West Coast of the United States, from Shameful Tiki and the Canadian animal, the beaver, to Clifton's Cafeteria and an owl homage to the Maltese falcon. To this is the Trader Vic's at the San Jose airport, which I love because it represents sort of the arts and crafts movement from the early 1900s that was prominent in the San Jose area, in the Bay Area. And then it's got the Tiki, but the way the glaze is done. Plus the airport, San Jose airport is SJC, which happened to be my initials as well. So represent California, Clifton's, an import. I think this is an import mug, but it represents the totem pole. And then the pottery from up here, whoops, and just up the street in Port Orchard, the as well from the 1960s, I think I want to say. And then we go back into nautical and Wilfred's Lounge, and a lot of nautical mugs are down at the bottom. And then we do Central and Mesoamerica. So keeping with the Pan-Pacific theme, we sort of group some of the mugs. And like a lot of collectors, I have more mugs than I know what to do with. But it's a nice problem to have because then you can thematically group these things. But I personally am not confined to Tiki or Polynesia. Again, it's more of a Pan-Pacific thing. But we talked about Monkeys with Fez. We've talked about artists, an art gallery, and we've talked about Pan-Pacific pop surrealism. And I guess the final theme of the bar that's just emerged sort of naturally, was never intentional, but it certainly has become a prominent part of it because this says some people have described this as, even though there's a lot here, more of a streamline or a modern or more modern, I guess. I don't know how you'd say it right, but a modern tiki bar is we have the 1960s as a theme that sort of emerged organically into the bar. And the reason it emerged was I had a collection, I think I'm missing one, of the 1964 New York World's Fair mugs. And then I was able to get a complete collection of this frosted glass Seattle World's Fair mugs from 1962. And you can tell why the aesthetic of the Space Needle or the world's hemisphere sort of fits with the vibe of the art that I'm in. So I fell in love with these glasses, and so thought we would display them both because of the Seattle connection, but also because of the art they represent, and in terms of the World's Fair in the 1960s. So then I had a bunch of stuff that's highly idiosyncratic and personal that when I was planning the bar, I just wanted to move around and show off, and decided to just put a bulletin board above the bar. So we have a cork board above the bar. That's a bulletin board. And it's gone through various iterations. And the beauty of it is whatever floats my boat, I can put up here. But you'll notice that we have the 1960s theme. My aunt, who passed away this year in 2023, I was going through her things while she was still with us and was able to find an actual program. She had attended John F. Kennedy's New York gala in 1962, his birthday gala. And that was the famous Happy Birthday, Mr. President that Marilyn Monroe sang at. And there's Maria Callas, who also was at that, the world famous opera singer with Marilyn Monroe. This is Heidi's dad with Jane Mansfield, the other of the M's, the Marilyn Monroe there. And the third of the M's of the other Marilyn Monroes was Mamie Van Doren, who's still alive today. Must be pushing, I don't know, we said late 80s, early 90s year old, with Heidi's dad, who is a Casa de Cadillac. And it's hard to see the details, but there's a lot of spaceship rocketry going on from the 1960s. Then an artist who does tongue-in-cheek portraits of famous people, and then puts them in different guises. There's a Marilyn McCormick with a Maori tattoo, and there's Heidi, my wife, in high school, and they actually look alike. And in fact, Heidi was a classmate with her before she joined the Brady Bunch. And then we have, like I said, we could go through a lot of it, but you could sort of see the vibe, the artwork that I like, the eccentric things that friends have made. These are the 500 to 1,000 details that make up an impression. I'm not sure what impression it leaves, but I'll leave that up to the viewer. And again, today's tour doesn't have all the little lights and bells and whistles, but gives you a good sense of what we're all about and why that quote that I recently found that we started this video with really resonated with me. How the details, which I was sort of frustrated, like, do they even matter? Yeah, they do, because that's what creates the impression and that's what creates the atmosphere. And we put our own personality into it. And that's what makes a home bar is it reflects you. And hopefully you get a good reflection of me, warts and all. The point really is that you don't need to sit in the bathroom or go online and listen to every minute of the story. You can if you want, because it really adds to the bar experience.
Just bring a roll of toilet paper with you.
I suppose.
Want to support the Tiki with Ray show and look cool doing it at the same time? Then head over to tikiwithray.com and buy yourself a Tiki with Ray shirt. They're only $20. Tony Canepa did the design, and they're screen printed in America.